are going to click the bottom, on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you are going to see a purple tab. Click on that purple tab and a menu will come out. And you'll see on the bottom of that, you're able to click on, it looks like a little balloon or a little, I guess a chat bubble, I sound old, a chat bubble. And you can click on that, and on the bottom, you can begin to write your questions if you have them. We're also going to have an opportunity for you, if you prefer, to raise your hand, especially, and if you're a caller, you're just going to have to speak out. And what we may do for the students that are listening in, at the end of this, or when we're done with the presentation, we have a number of callers. If you will go ahead and unmute some of those callers, and then we'll ask if anybody has any questions that's calling in. So we'll do that because I recognize folks that are calling in might be at a slight disadvantage in that way. So I'm gonna hand off the discussion to Maria Herrera, who is the head of the Spanish-speaking community. She's gonna make some introductions, and we're gonna go from there. So thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're hoping that you will find this information very, very helpful. I wanted to make a couple of quick introductions. We have with us tonight, and I'll let them do their own personal introductions as well, but we have people from the Help Center, that is Attorney Graham as well as Alyssa, that are here to help us with some information. We also have Attorney Shapiro, Joanna, who was just speaking a second ago from the Self-Help Center. We have Nick Brown from the Religious Coalition. We have Sean Denelson from the Health Department. We have Joni Raymond, who is a member of the Bar Association of Frederick, and myself, Maria Herrera, from the Spanish-speaking community. So we hope that you will be able to enjoy our presentation this evening. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Graham.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Graham. I'm an attorney with the Maryland Court Help Center. Just a little bit about our organization. We provide limited legal advice and guidance in all sorts of civil matters: custody, child support, divorce, protective and peace orders, and other civil lawsuits, including landlord-tenant matters, which is what I'm going to be primarily discussing today. Our organization does not represent individuals directly in court, but we can assist people who do not have a lawyer to navigate the court system. The Maryland Court Help Center has locations all across the state of Maryland. We do have a location in the Frederick Courthouse as well. Most of our physical locations are unfortunately closed right now to in-person visits due to COVID-19, but we hope to reopen our in-person services again as soon as the middle of March. But right now, and even when our in-person services are open, we have a statewide helpline. That phone number is 410-260-1392, and that phone number is going to appear later on in the slides as well. That state helpline is open Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. until 8 p.m. So please reach out to us in the future if you have any questions about legal issues that you're experiencing, or if you have any more in-detail questions about anything that we're discussing tonight. But today, though, we are here to talk about eviction matters. And we're going to talk about three things specifically today. First, we're going to talk about types of eviction cases. Second, we're going to talk about the eviction process from the start all the way through to the end. And then finally, we're going to talk about some of the impacts that COVID-19 has had on the eviction process in Frederick and in Maryland in general. So starting with the types of eviction cases, there are 4 types of eviction cases in the state of Maryland: failure to pay rent, tenant holding over, breach of lease, and wrongful detainer. And we're going to walk through each of those in a little bit more detail right now. The first is failure to pay rent. Failure to pay rent is exactly what it sounds like, which is a landlord can seek to have their tenant evicted at any point during a month-to-month tenancy or during a longer lease, as soon as the tenant fails to make a full rental payment. There is no waiting period required. The landlord can file that failure to pay rent complaint as soon as one rent payment is missed. The second type of eviction case is called tenant holding over. Tenant holding over evictions happen in a situation where a tenant has a month-to-month tenancy or is nearing the end of a lease term with their landlord, and the landlord gives the tenant written notice to vacate. Maryland law requires landlords to provide 1 full month's written notice to vacate if they are going to terminate a month-to-month tenancy, or if they are not going to renew a tenant's lease at the end of the lease expiration. Some landlords try to give 30 days notice, but technically Maryland law requires 1 full month's notice. And generally the advice that we give to both tenants and to landlords here at the Maryland Court Help Center is that 1 month means 1 full calendar month, not just 30 days. Improper and insufficient notice in a tenant holding over eviction case can be a valid defense, and we're going to talk about that defense and other defenses a little bit later. The third type of eviction case is called breach of lease. And again, just as it sounds, a breach of lease eviction is where the landlord is seeking to evict a tenant during a lease term for having violated one or more provisions in the lease. For a landlord to file a breach of lease eviction, first, the landlord has to have a written lease with the tenant. If you and your landlord do not have a written lease agreement, the landlord cannot file for a breach of lease eviction. Second, the landlord must provide written notice of what specific terms in the lease agreement the tenant has violated in order to seek a breach of lease. And there are, again, timelines that the landlord has to follow. In general, for regular breaches of a lease agreement, the landlord must provide at least 30 days written notice for a tenant to correct the breach or to vacate the property. The exception is that if the landlord is arguing that a tenant has violated a provision of the lease and that their violation poses a risk to the health or safety of anybody in the unit or anybody else, the landlord can only provide 14 days notice for the tenant to correct the breach or to vacate the property. Once the landlord has provided that written notice, if the issue has not been corrected and the tenant still remains, the landlord can file a complaint for breach of lease. The final type of eviction that we see is called wrongful detainer. Wrongful detainer is a little bit like tenant holding over in that the argument is that a tenant has outstayed their welcome, but a wrongful detainer really doesn't involve tenants. It involves individuals who don't have any type of legal tenancy arrangement with the landlord. Wrongful detainer is really a way to get rid of a guest. Now, Maryland law can be read pretty broadly to interpret a tenant as anybody who contributes financially in rent, utilities, or other services. We generally advise landlords not to pursue a wrongful detainer suit if the tenant has ever contributed any money towards rent, utilities, or provided any other services. Even if there isn't a formal agreement for regular rent payments, we generally advise landlords to steer clear of wrongful detainer if there has ever been any type of financial exchange. So it's generally safer for landlords to treat their tenants as a tenant and pursue a tenant holding over, and that can be helpful to know as a potential respondent in a wrongful detainer suit, that if you have ever paid any money towards rent or utilities, you may not be a guest and the landlord may not be able to seek a wrongful detainer suit against you. They may need to seek a tenant holding over suit. There is no notice requirement, though, for filing a complaint for wrongful detainer. As soon as the landlord or the person who has an ownership interest in the property wants the guest to be gone, they can file a complaint for wrongful detainer. So now that we understand the 4 main types of eviction cases in Maryland, we're going to talk about the eviction process. The first step in the eviction process is, if necessary, the landlord is going to provide written notice to the tenant. That would be in a tenant holding over case or in a breach of lease case where the landlord has to provide that written notice. In a failure to pay rent case, as I already indicated, the landlord does not have to comply with any type of notice requirement. The landlord can file the failure to pay rent complaint as soon as the tenant fails to make a complete payment. Once the landlord has complied with any written notice requirement, the landlord can go to the district court in the county and file a complaint. The complaint and a notice of a hearing date are going to be posted on the property by a representative from the sheriff's department. If you receive paperwork in the mail, or if you receive any type of notice on your door and you have questions or are uncertain about what that notice means, please call the Maryland Court Help Center and we will try to help interpret what that notice means and give you some advice about what the next steps are that you can take. Once the complaint has been filed and the sheriff has properly posted notice on your property of a hearing date, you will have a hearing date in the eviction case. And so what we're going to focus on today is the types of defenses that might be raised at that hearing date. Those defenses might be that the balance of back rent has already been paid. So for example, in a failure to pay rent case, if you have paid the full amount of back rent that the landlord listed in the complaint, you could raise that as a defense at your failure to pay rent hearing. You would obviously want to bring as much documentation as you could, any receipts of payments or any account statements showing that a payment had been made to your landlord to prove that the amount of money that your landlord is claiming had not been paid has been sufficiently paid. And that could be a defense to the failure to pay rent eviction that your landlord had filed for. Another defense might be to argue for rent escrow. Rent escrow is an argument by a tenant that they do not need to pay either the full amount of rent or that they wish to pay rent to the court or to an escrow account rather than the landlord, because the landlord has failed to address certain dangerous or unsafe conditions in the property. A tenant raising a rent escrow offense, rent escrow defense, needs to be able to prove that there are conditions in the property that are truly unsafe or hazardous to an individual's health. Stuff like lack of any heat, lack of running water might be sufficient for a rent escrow defense. Simple aesthetic issues, chipped paint, even potentially an appliance not working properly, while those things can be incredibly annoying, are not necessarily going to rise to the level of a rent escrow defense. The other key thing to know about raising a rent escrow defense to a failure to pay rent case is that you can only raise rent escrow as a defense if your rent is paid in full. The court does not want defendants in eviction actions using rent escrow as an excuse for not having paid rent. So if your rent is fully paid, you can raise rent escrow as a defense, or you can bring cash or a money order made out directly to your landlord for all of your back rent to your court hearing and ask the court to, instead of pay that balance to the landlord at your failure to pay rent hearing, ask the court to hold that in escrow while you prove your rent escrow case. Raising a rent escrow defense can be fairly challenging. And so if that is something that you are considering raising as a defense at a failure to pay rent hearing, we would encourage you to reach out to the Court Help Center so you can get some more advice about how to raise that specific defense. Another defense, as I indicated previously, might be that your landlord has not complied with the proper notice provisions in Maryland law. So this would be in a tenant holding over eviction or in a breach of lease eviction. You might argue that the landlord has not provided proper written notice either of the term of the lease that you are violating, or that your landlord didn't provide a full 1 month's written notice for you to leave in a tenant holding over lease. Again, if you're planning on raising a defense like that, please contact the Maryland Court Help Center and we can provide some advice and assistance about how to raise that in court. The final defense that we'll talk about specifically today is the the eviction protections that currently exist from the Centers for Disease Control because of COVID-19. Those eviction protections from the CDC have now been extended through March 31st. In order to raise COVID-19 as a defense, you have to do a couple things. First, you have to fill out the CDC declaration form. That link is available here in the PowerPoint. It's also available on the CDC's website, and we can help direct you to that link and to that form if you call the Maryland Court Help Center. You need to fill out that affidavit, and you also need to be able to prove to the court that you qualify for eviction protection, meaning you need to be able to prove that you have lost wages or experienced severe financial hardship as a result of COVID-19. Again, if you're planning on raising this type of defense at a failure to pay rent hearing, please contact the Maryland Court Help Center so we can provide you with some specific advice and go over what type of paperwork you'll need to raise that defense. Okay, so those are all of the defenses that you might raise at an eviction hearing. If the court does not agree with any of those defenses, or if you're unable to raise those defenses, the court is going to enter a judgment of possession in favor of your landlord. Now, despite what it sounds like, a judgment of possession does not immediately give your landlord the right to evict you or to retake possession of the property. Instead, after the landlord has the judgment of possession, the landlord has to file for a warrant of restitution. Now, in failure to pay rent cases, there is a waiting period between when the landlord gets the judgment of possession and when the landlord can file for the warrant of restitution. And in failure to pay rent cases, that waiting period is 5 business days. So if your landlord obtains a judgment of possession on a Friday, the soonest, absolute soonest that they can file for the warrant of restitution is the following Friday, 5 business days from the date that they obtained the judgment of possession. In tenant holding over and in breach of lease cases, there is no waiting period for the landlord to file for the warrant of restitution. The landlord can file for the warrant of restitution in those cases as soon as they have the judgment of possession. They could walk right out of the courtroom with the judgment of possession and go to the clerk's office and file for the warrant of restitution. Once the landlord has the warrant of restitution, they can go to the sheriff's department with the warrant of restitution and get the sheriff to actually schedule a formal eviction date. Now, when the sheriff schedules a formal eviction date, sometimes the sheriff is going to post a notice of that eviction date on the property. Sometimes, unfortunately, given the just COVID-19 and given the delays and the confusion, unfortunately, sometimes the sheriff is not going to post a notice of the eviction date. Sometimes the notice, if it is posted, is going to include a specific date for the eviction. Unfortunately, sometimes we've also seen cases where the warrant of restitution did not include a specific eviction date, or it was hard to read what the specific eviction date was. If you believe that a judgment of possession or a warrant of restitution has been issued against you, please contact the Maryland Court Help Center so that we can advise you on what steps you can take to try to determine whether a warrant of restitution has been issued or a judgment of possession, what stage of the process you're in, and what different steps you might take to try to prevent the eviction from taking place. Finally, the actual eviction will take place. Okay. The one last thing that we can talk about in terms of the eviction process here is the right of redemption in failure to pay rent cases. I've listed this here at the end under the eviction bullet, but this really applies all the way through the eviction process. If the court has issued a judgment of possession or a warrant of restitution, or even if your landlord has just filed a complaint for failure to pay rent, at any point along the way in the eviction process, if you are able to make a payment in full of the amount of money listed on your landlord's complaint for failure to pay rent, they have to list a specific amount of money in missed rent payments. If you can pay off that entire balance, then the eviction will be canceled. Now, you want to make sure that you maintain proof that that amount was paid off. So you certainly wouldn't want to just deliver a cash payment to your landlord and not get any type of receipt. You want to make sure that you get a receipt or that you use a money order, something that can be traced, so that you could try to prove, if necessary, that that payment had been made and that the balance had been wiped out. Again, this is a defense that you can raise prior to the eviction hearing taking place in court, but it's also a defense that you can raise right up until the moment of your eviction. So if the court has issued a judgment of possession and a warrant of restitution, and the sheriff is literally knocking on your door getting you to do the eviction, if you have a money order or cash for the entire amount that is listed on your complaint for failure to pay rent, you can stop the eviction from taking place by giving that to the landlord and the sheriff right there. Okay, so that's the final defense. Again, if you have questions about how to pay off that balance in a safe way where you're going to have a receipt, or you have questions about how to do that, please contact the Maryland Court Help Center and we can help guide you through that process. Okay, now that we understand the eviction process, we're going to talk a little bit about how that process has been impacted by COVID-19. So between November 30th last fall and March 14th of this year, the Maryland court system is in phase 2 of operations. And what that means under the current COVID-19 operation system is that the court is not currently holding any failure to pay rent hearings. All of those hearings have been postponed until after March 14th, 2021. It also means that the court is only holding emergency hearings as it relates to tenant holding over cases, breach of lease cases, and wrongful detainer cases. Now, the current administrative orders do not provide clear guidance about what constitutes an emergency for a tenant holding over a breach of lease or a wrongful detainer. We have seen some hearings be scheduled in various counties on these types of evictions. If you have a hearing date scheduled for one of these types of eviction cases, contact the Maryland Court Help Center and we can try to provide some advice about what motions you can try to file or what arguments you can make at your hearing to try to prevent those hearings from taking place until after the court resumes normal operations. Similarly, for failure to pay rent cases, the court is in the process of rescheduling a lot of those matters. We have heard anecdotally from people that failure to pay rent complaints that have been filed in the last few months are still generating notices. So even for a failure to pay rent complaint filed yesterday, the sheriff would still oftentimes, it sounds like, be going out and posting notice on the property that a failure to pay rent complaint has been filed, but oftentimes that notice won't include a specific court date. Again, if you have questions about whether a court date has been scheduled in your failure to pay rent matter, you can check Maryland Judicial Case Search, or you can call the Maryland Court Help Center. We can try to provide you with some guidance and assistance there. Now, again, the court operations right now are only restricted through the middle of March. We expect that we're going to receive more new administrative orders from the Maryland court system by March 2021. We don't know what those administrative orders are going to say. We don't know if the court will resume normal operations or if these hearings will continue to be postponed. If you have a case that is working its way through the system and it's getting closer to the middle of March and you have concerns about what's going to happen, again, call the Maryland Court Help Center and we'll try to provide some guidance. Lastly, as I already indicated, the CDC extended its eviction protections now through the end of March. Those CDC eviction protections provide protection for covered persons. And under the CDC order, covered persons are defined as those who cannot afford to pay rent because of a loss of income, because of extraordinary medical expenses, or because of a layoff. It's very clear, based on how the court is handling these cases so far, that protection applies to individuals in failure to pay rent cases who are arguing that they cannot afford rent because of a loss of income or an extraordinary medical expense. We're also recommending, though, that individuals who have tenant holding over cases, individuals who either can't afford their current month-to-month lease, and so their landlord is trying to terminate that lease, or individuals who are having difficulties finding a new place, affording a security deposit or something like that. We're recommending that those individuals also start trying to argue that they are covered by these same CDC protections. If you have questions about raising that defense in either a failure to pay rent case or in a tenant holding over case, please contact the Maryland Court Help Center and we'll try to provide some assistance. Again, folks, what we want to stress more than anything is if you are unsure of what's going on with your eviction case, if you are unsure what a notice means or what is going to happen at a particular court date, if you have questions about your landlord-tenant situation, please call the Maryland Court Help Center at 410-260-1392. We are open Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. We'd be happy to try to assist you navigate this legal process. And with that, folks, I'm going to turn it over to Joanna at the Family Law Self-Help Center.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for all that information. What I can say with regard to, we provide a similar service. I'm with the Family Law Self-Help Center. Just like the Maryland Court Self-Help Center, the Maryland Court Help Center, we do not provide actual representation in court. What we do instead is we provide assistance in all facets and provide support throughout the litigation process to help you represent yourself. So we don't provide representation, but if there's any matter that comes up regarding custody or child support or name change or paternity issues, or if someone's not complying with the court order, certain domestic violence issues, come see us. So similar to the Maryland Court Self-Help Centers, we are not open. We typically we're open for walk-in center in the courthouse, but currently we are only doing appointments virtually. So until the court reopens and they get past what they're in right now, which is the phase 2, and we don't expect to get any more information about that until after mid-March, you can see us by a virtual appointment. So it's actually, we use the same platform right now that we are on right now. So you have the option to see us by video chat or by this platform where we send you a link and you can see us and we can talk just like this. Or you can also dial in. Some folks are not comfortable, or their Wi-Fi is not good enough, or you've got children, and like with me, the bandwidth is stretched pretty far during the workday, so you can call in as well. You contact us right now while the court is closed. You contact us by a phone number. That phone number is on the screen right now. It is 301-834-2627. Honestly, the best way to get in touch with us is send us a text message. Just send us those text messages during business hours, so Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4 p.m., and we will get back to you within 24 hours, and we will run a conflict, and we'll be able to check, and we'll be able to see if we can see you. If for any reason we can't see you, then we're going to send you to the Maryland Court Help Center, and they are also fabulous. We work in the same space in the courthouse, and I see the amazing work that they do, and we work together really well. The difference between our two programs, again, is that I provide a much more in-depth service. We will assign paralegal students to work with you on organizing facts and information. We can help you prep for litigation. We can help you draft motions and pleadings. We just provide a slightly more in-depth service than the Maryland Court Center can. But both programs are able to assist you and provide you information on these resources or on these issues. So again, let me just reiterate, if you have any questions or need any support in the litigation process, we are here to help you. You reach us by calling our appointment line. We'll set up an appointment with you. You can send us a text at that number that's on the screen, which again for callers is 301-834-2627. Send us a text message anytime during business hours. but we also accept phone calls. But we only accept phone calls to set up an appointment during Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 to 11. So send us a text message, and if you don't have the ability to do that, give us a call Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, 9 to 11. We'll pick up the phone and we'll set up an appointment via, so we'll send you a link, and you can either contact us through the appointment on this platform via a link or by telephone. All right, so that's our information. I'm going to hand the baton over to, I believe, Nick Brown with the Religious Coalition.
Good evening, folks. Let me get my video up here. All right, thank you, Joanna and Graham. Graham had a lot of information that we really like to make sure people are armed with, particularly their rights and how to deal with everything involving evictions. The Religious Coalition has been an agency that's been around for quite some time. We focus on shelter and housing stability services. And we have a great partner in Spanish-speaking communities that you'll hear from here directly. What we provide, at least in this conversation, is rental assistance. Last year, when the federal relief came down, the Religious Coalition became the conduit by which the rental assistance was distributed. We managed to provide about $2 million in rental assistance to about 550 different households through that time. The next round of assistance is coming around, and we wanted to get this information out now, and with the kind of little bit of a carrot that some of this information may change between now and March 1st. So March 1st is the date that the new round of rental assistance will begin. And what we want to really underscore tonight and anytime between now and when these funds run out is apply as soon as possible. If you are behind, if you know anybody behind, we want you to apply as quickly as you can, so we can get you into the queue and start figuring those things out. Now, even we're in February right now. The program doesn't start until March, so if there's anyone with arrears from January and February, we still want you to apply. One thing that we've done is reached out to all of the landlords that have, that we've been dealing with over the last year, and let them know this, the next round is coming, and we want to, have those conversations now again with them and with their tenants as far as assistance goes. So we want to talk a little bit about the program as it will roll out. And again, these are subject to change really over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Some of the guidance that the Treasury initially put out has now changed, so that may ultimately change how we deliver the program. In any case, the ability of this rental assistance is significantly larger than that of the last. What we can do with this round is we can actually go back 12 months in arrears. So if there's anybody who owes up to a year of back rent, we're able to affect the balance entirely. The time frame that we have for these funds is, again, March 1st to the end of September. So, but we want to, don't worry how long it runs. We want people to apply now if there is a need. There are going to be required documents to apply for the program. If you've applied before, you are still eligible to apply in this round. Additionally to that eligibility, you can actually apply for multiple rounds going forward, or multiple months going forward, meaning that if you apply for March for a January, February, or March arrears, and you need assistance again in June, July, that assistance can also be replicated therein. So it's important that we get you into the system if there's a need, and that we can start working through all the details. Generally, what will happen is if you have web access, which obviously most folks on the call do, you can go to our website, which is the same website that you linked the event tonight with. It's the religiouscoalition.org. It can be abbreviated significantly by rcehn.org. That'll take you to our main website. You'll see a pop-up. Many of you may have seen it tonight. That said, do you need rental assistance? So there's a link that will take you to the portal. That portal will walk you through all the different steps, the eligibility questions, and I'll also have the place where you will upload the various documents that we need to make your case go through. What we know now is that the similar requirements to last year's assistance will be replicated this year. We know we have to prove some variety of COVID hardship. We know that we will need to see anyone's lease. We know that we need to have an eviction notice if your landlord has generated one, or a letter of arrears from the landlord. And it can be something typed up that just needs to call out how much you exactly owe and for what time, and then we can work from there. Thereafter, the way you prove the other documents that are listed here in this slide, they're not necessarily all going to be required. What we would want to see was your income. If you have your last check for 2020 that covers the preceding year. If you've done your taxes by the time that you've applied, that covers the preceding year. Obviously, any current income, any current awards, benefits received, we'll want to see information thereof. What we will start doing, again, very, very soon, is starting to take those applications in. You can apply now. The portal exists in a to be updated self, but we can at least get any names, anybody who needs assistance now, into that system. And then when we change, we're going to update that site to reflect what the new requirements are going to be. Everybody will be ported over. That is correct. The question, should somebody apply now? Yes. So you can actually apply tonight. The portal is there. You can get that, the application going. The approval for this round of rental assistance, it's important to note, won't happen until March 1st. Now, that said, the coalition regularly has eviction prevention dollars that we normally help with. So we are actually expending those dollars right now, along with talking with landlords and trying to work through these 2 months here until those federal dollars become unlocked. So we want to be sure to get the word out wide. Again, it is fairly flexible in that we can do it, multiple times. We want to touch everybody who is in need. The added benefit to this round, additionally, is that this can actually cover utilities as well. And it's the same framework as the rental assistance. It can go back a year of arrears. Now, a lot of folks aren't going to be a year behind in utilities, but the level of assistance that can be dropped for both rent and utilities is fairly significant. So that will be the difference if somebody applies now versus applies after we've updated the site. The new site will cover all the utility questions as well. Right now, it'll just be rental assistance. So that is a quick breeze by on the rental assistance program. Again, keep an eye on that website. Yes, that's absolutely right. Maria says, rental assistance is regardless of status. There are no, there's no immigration requirements or otherwise that we need to, to deal with. And we're going to mirror how we provided the assistance in the last session to make sure that we have as even access as possible. So Maria and crew at Spanish-speaking communities help our Spanish speakers through a variety of in-person phone calls and otherwise. And then the coalition has staff that are taking, processing those applications, approving those cases, and getting those dollars out to the landlords. So it's been last year was a good, it was a great effort that was really shown the great partnership between Maria and I's organizations. We really wanted to push out to make sure that everybody is aware. Again, we're going to go wide as far as the publicity of this year to make sure that everybody is keenly aware of what's available. Outside of the rental assistance, the Religious Coalition itself has other services that I just want to do a real quick summary of. We are a shelter provider traditionally. We operate an adult shelter and a family shelter. So if there are folks in need that have unfortunately lost their housing due to COVID or otherwise, contact us as well. The main number is there on the slide, and the menu will travel through a variety of staff, kind of dependent on what it is that you need. We mentioned utilities as well. That will be now expanded beyond our normal level of assistance. And we also have some medical assistance available by way of prescription assistance and dental assistance. That is the prescription assistance has been something a long time that the coalition has done, and can help with a fairly robust need if indeed folks are in need of medication assistance. Dental has wavered over the years depending on the funding. Our new funding right now is for folks 55 and above that can help with, again, some type of dental emergency. So if there's anybody you know, or if you are in need as well, please contact us, and let's see what we can do. So that is about it. Take some questions here at the end of the presentation, but I think I'm handing off to my good friend Maria Herrera.
Thank you so much, Nick. I think Nick explained that we have a terrific partnership working with the Spanish-speaking community. Again, I'm Maria Herrera with the Spanish-speaking community of Maryland. I'm the executive director. We have wonderful partnerships with all of the people who are presenting today. I am humbly honored to work with all of them. We also have a very strong partnership with Frederick County Public Schools. I actually provide go on home visits with a lot of the counselors or other members of the school system to help support families in need. We also provide domestic violence assistance, sex trafficking, or any victims of crime. We work very closely with Hartley House in these areas. We also provide translations and immigration work. Primarily, our work is done with immigrants in the Frederick County area. We have an office in Frederick as well as Silver Spring. We provide assistance with mental health, any other medical assistance that people may need, such as filling out forms or if they have any questions. We also help with employment needs, resumes, landlord-tenant disputes. If there are any issues associated with your tenant and landlord, sometimes we are able to call and resolve issues. Employment, for some reason, is here twice. My apologies. And other partners that we work with to offer any other type of assistance that we possibly can. Our commitment to the community is to assist the most vulnerable students and families through the unmanageable, and make sure that they are informed and have the right resources to support the need to achieve sustainability. We want to be the voices for those who are behind the shadows of despair and whose screams for help go unheard. We work with places of worship, the partners that we mentioned, as well as other partners, law enforcement, and the school system to break the vicious cycle of abuse through education and support. So that is my quick presentation. If anyone has any questions or we can be of any assistance, our number will be at the end of this presentation as well. So with that, I am also going to cover briefly the Office of Home and Energy Programs. If anyone is in need of any of this assistance, they may call the Office of Home Energy Programs at this number that we are going to provide here for you in the next session. The application process is you must qualify for this service. These are some examples that you will need to check to ensure that you qualify. They're wonderful. They always try to help people, and they are part of the community action. So please feel free to give them a call if you have any questions. Their number is here, 301-600-2690, or you can email them for any questions that you may have regarding any type of gas or utility assistance. With that, I am going to turn it over to Sean from the Health Department. Sean?
Maria, I think you had a question in the chat.
Oh, sorry.
Human Rights would like to ask question instead of writing it now. Do you want them to hold that till the end?
Yes, if you can hold that to the end, that would be great because we want to get through the presentation. Oh, if it's a quick question, go ahead.
Well, I don't know how quick it is, but thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Thanks. So the situation that I have a question about is the possibility of making sure there is a domestic relations judge on the docket at all times. I have a situation with my 21-year-old daughter where she had a domestic violence situation back in November, and she got her paperwork in right at around 11 o'clock, and we were told if you get it in by a certain time, you'll be able to be in the morning docket. Well, she was not, and I knew at that point that my daughter would recant. So she withdrew the order, and the opportunity to try to get her out of that situation has just been delayed. So I'm just asking if perhaps, among all of you, if there's some way to see if a judge or a master or whatever can just always be, on call. And I realize the court, Frederick doesn't have as many, judges as other courts and things like that, but just wanting to present that as an idea to help people who are in domestic violence situations.
Joanna or Joni, would you be able to answer any of that?
Certainly, one of the resources that we have is, of course, going to be Hartley House, and that number is going to be in the resource list as well. You can also go, and I'm not sure, and Joni, you might chime in. I'm blanking now as to whether they can go or if they call or how they get into the late with the court commissioner.
Yeah, I
We
think
did have.
if you go out to Marcy's Choice Lane, out to the detention center, I think that there is a commissioner 24/7 that's out there.
Correct.
I believe so. I didn't know if there were any recent changes, but that was my understanding as well. And Blaine was the head of legal, was on here, but I think he's popped off, but off of the chat. But if you have any questions about that, certainly you can make an appointment with the Family Law Help Center. Happy to help you on that and discuss options for your daughter. And also Hartley House is an option in the court commissioner's office. So you should be able to get some type of assistance 24 hours.
Sure. I am aware of the commissioner's office being available outside of court hours. My concern is for anyone else who's in a similar situation where they being held over the afternoon docket, where they have to wait about an hour or whatever, hour and a half, for everyone to eat lunch. That's the time when, the boyfriends are calling, trying to pressure, please don't turn me in, please, let's get back together. And these girls or these people who are in these situations, they are very weak. And the fact that my daughter did what she did was heroic, but the delay cost her. And I know she's going to not be the only one going through this. And so that's my real concern. I have discussed it with a number of people, and I really don't know how in the world, the court system could operate to do what I'm suggesting, but I'm really suggesting that to really be helpful to people. And I know you all, that's your desire, your passions and everything like that. But I'm just saying this is a real practical thing that could be done. And as the mother of this girl that went through this, I'm telling you, this was awful to see this. And again, I'm not the only one that's probably dealt with this. So if there's any way that you all could, work within the system or whatever to just have some kind of master, judge, magistrate, whatever, on call for domestic violence at all times during the days, the times that the courts are open, then that would be most helpful. I mean, otherwise I could have taken her to the commissioner's office on Marcy Lane, but we were right.
Well, let's do this. So I'm happy to, if you want to make an appointment with the Family Self-Help Center, certainly do that. And I'd be happy to talk to you about any other options and resources for your daughter and anybody else in that situation. So I'm more than happy to talk more at length about that with you. And I want to be able to hear your concerns. So I'm going to have us go to the next through the health department, but I invite you to please reach out to me. And again, our phone number's there, and I'm happy to have a further discussion with you on this. Okay, ma'am?
Okay. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
Sean, you're up.
All right. Hey, Sean Dennison. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for the COVID Division at the Frederick County Health Department. Just coming on to talk briefly about the vaccination effort and the vaccine rollout in Frederick County in the state of Maryland. I will say that the Frederick County Health Department is vaccinating, if you've seen the pyramid before, which is on your screen there, we're vaccinating groups 1A and 1B are 75-year-old residents only at this point. We're inviting all of you to complete the vaccine interest survey. The link is on this. I'll include some additional information in the chat bar. But I wanted to say too that for those of us who either are not tech savvy or don't have the technology there are phones. There's a phone number you can call. The English line there is 301-600-7900, 301-600-7900. And the Spanish language line is 301-600-7905. But if you are interested in receiving the vaccine, and doesn't matter what priority group that you're in, complete the vaccine survey. You'll see it there at frederickcountymd.gov, COVID vaccine. And you could also get additional information where you see at the bottom the covidlink.maryland.gov. You can find other locations that are providing vaccines. So last but not least, again, being brief, wear a mask, wash your hands, and keep your distance, because we'll all stay healthy that way. So very good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to say my little piece here. And like I said, I will put additional information in the chat bar and answer any questions you may have, because we know it's very confusing right now, but we'll get there. Thank you.
No questions for Sean? Okay. This is briefly, this is Maria again. I just wanted to let everyone know that United Way is now offering, for those that qualify, free tax preparation. So if you are in the low income sector, and also if in fact you may have lost your job, your hours may have been reduced, you may qualify for free tax preparation through the United Way and the VITA program. So please call the 211 number and let them know to make an appointment, and they will let you know the next steps that you need to take. Again, you can call 211 for this type of service. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and it's still Maria, is the Community Action Agency as well as the Rescue Mission. I know these are very difficult times for some families. Want to make sure that you are aware that the Community Action Agency is providing drop-off locations for food. You may go as many times as you wish to these locations, listed on the left-hand side, as well as the Rescue Mission also provides food services. You can pick up breakfast every day from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., no questions asked, as well as lunch. In addition, they have a food distribution center, and here are the hours listed. Tuesday, Wednesday, 1:30 to 3:30. Friday and Monday they're closed, but they also have evening hours for Thursday from 2 to 6. So if you have any questions, I suggest that you give them a call so that you can then be able to pick up food. There is no reason why anyone should be hungry in Frederick County or any child go to bed without food. There's plenty of food, and these locations are wonderful about helping families. Hartley House, I think we spoke a little bit, Attorney Shapiro mentioned Hartley House. They're always available to help those victims in crisis or victims in need. They have a 24-hour emergency shelter line, or any questions that you may have. The 24-hour hotline is always available to assist. They also are able to find other languages based on the language contracts that they have. So if you have any issues related to domestic violence or have been a victim of any type of crime, please call Hartley House. They have wonderful attorneys. We work very closely with them, and they're always available to help. Of course, always, if there's an immediate emergency and you are in immediate danger, always dial 911. We don't have anybody from Hartley House on the line, right, Joanna?
No, I think Blaine couldn't stick with us. So, but I certainly, if you call that number, it's a hotline, and they always answer and they provide wonderful support. If it's an emergency, call 911. You can also call them to get a number of resources. And then to file, you can also contact the Maryland Help Center and also the Family Self-Help Center that I run. So there's plenty of resources, and if you're not sure, contact one of them, and I'm sure they can get you to where you need to be.
Thank you.
Do you want to open up to questions now?
Yes, we can, and that's our next slide. Just quickly wanted to provide some of the resources that we've spoken about, the websites as well as the numbers. These are kind of what we've already covered, but just wanted to let everyone know that these resources are listed on the presentation. If anyone was not able to write them down or want to take a picture, these are the resources that we have discussed. And with that, we go to questions and answer session.
Thank you, Maria.
Sure. So anyone can put a question on the chat, as Joanna had mentioned, and or if they want to raise their hand, we can help them.
So to raise your hand, you click on the icon at the bottom middle of the screen, and it looks a bit like that. And we can call on you. Just make sure that if you are going to ask a question, that you have to unmute your mic. So next to the raising your hand icon, you'll need to click that microphone icon. If you want to ask a question in the chat, again, you have to click on the purple tab on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and you will see a chat bubble. Click on that, and you're going to see the ongoing chats and questions that are provided and additional resources. So somebody has a question about dental assistant.
Yes, Pam, our dental assistance is actually only available for folks in Frederick County itself. So there are any of our services are county specific. So there are, I'm not sure, kind of depending on the area, if you have a specific area, there may be some resource guides that we have, but yeah, as far as the coalitions, we
Oh, did we lose Nick?
No, I think I hit you too quickly there.
Okay.
Saying the dental assistants are just just Frederick County, so I'm not sure if that any of that got cut off.
Are there any other questions that we can answer?
Not seeing any in the chat. Nobody has any
Okay,
questions.
this is Pam again. Sorry, thank you. Sorry.
Sure.
Hi. Yes, thank you so much, Nick. Thank you very much. So we have a client who is in Montgomery County that could use some help with dental assistance. Do you know of anything that is similar to what you all are involved in that could provide dental assistance to her?
Not Montgomery County. Maria may have insight on.
Is this an adult or a child?
Yes, it is an adult, and she is on Medicaid.
Did she try the health department in Montgomery County?
I believe that is a great question. Okay, let me think about that. Yeah.
Sure, and if not, you can call me because we do have an office in Montgomery County, and I am more than happy to help you, Pam. Try to see if we can find a resource for that person. And I'm gonna give you my office number. So if you want to give me a call, I'm happy to see how I can assist your client.
Okay, excellent. I know you provided
And we
that
have
before, but
go ahead.
What's the best number for you, Maria?
It's the office number is 240-877-7466, and I put it right on the chat for you.
Thank you.
And there is a question from Oliver with regard to the recording. We are going to, this session is being recorded, if I did my job, and it is still recording. Well done. So I did that correctly. So it is going to be available, and we have to get it transcribed, and we're going to work on doing that, and then we'll make it available. I believe it can be, I don't want to speak for Nick with the Religious Coalition, but I believe that it was okay with them for us to put it on their website and also on the Spanish-speaking community website.
Yep, absolutely. Good for the coalition.
And
Okay,
we're
so
down here. We're mentioning on the bottom of the slide that we currently have where they're going to be located.
Right. So we'll have that done, and hopefully by next week. But also, I would recommend, and I'm going to put the other slide back on, which is the list of all the resources. And I recommend for anybody, even just to take a screenshot of this, take a picture of it or a screenshot, but it's all of the resources for the majority of the services that we provided. And there's, again, Nick provides the shorter link for the coalition, which is in the chat. So you can find, there's a number of resources in the chat for folks to look at. There is the screen that is available for those of you that are online, and we also will have a recording and a resource list on the Spanish-speaking community website and also the Religious Coalition website, which is the same site where you found the link to this presentation tonight. Any other questions from anybody? I don't see, oh, somebody raise their hand or lower their hand. I think they're lowered. So I think if there's not any other questions, I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. One of the things that I want to reiterate that I think everybody has, that everybody on this call is a member of the community. Please spread the word about these resources. We need all of you to spread to your neighbors and friends, because some folks won't share that they're struggling. So put out there that these resources are available. If in doubt, just bring up to folks that these resources and this list of resources available on these websites, so that they know that there's help out there. Also, one resource that's very helpful is calling 211. A lot of these resources would be available if somebody had questions, would likely be available on the 211 call center as well. Anything else, Maria? Or anybody else on the call? I think we're, well, thank you again for everybody for attending tonight.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening, everyone.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.